Well, all right. Here we are again, everybody. This time we're going to be talking about informal language and colloquialisms versus the formal tone, the formal style and academic style of language that we're going to be aiming for in AP Language and Composition. So I mentioned to you guys in class that we have a couple of articles that do a really nice job of explaining what colloquial language is and what informal language is, all the different forms that it can take. So I'm just showing you where these resources are. At the Writing Center tab is where I'm at on the class website. And avoiding colloquial or informal writing. Again, this is basically a style of writing that really mires a lot of high school level writing, and the more you try to avoid this and minimize it or even eliminate it altogether, you are going to be forced to really push yourself in that area of vocabulary and diction and making sure that you are trying to come across as totally intelligent and as educated as possible. So these articles, like I say, do a really nice job of just showing you all the different ways that it takes place. And you'll notice, avoid contractions, for instance. Some of these are going to sound a lot like the comments that I made on your essays. Gets into cliches, it gets into what it calls common colloquial phrases. So like I say, just read through these, see which ones you are perhaps guilty of, and again, start building that banned words list. If you know there are phrases and words you tend to use that fit this category, then write them down somewhere and make a point to avoid them. The tips that you get at the end of this first article, very, very useful as well. All right, definitely spend a little bit of time reading through what's here and trying to, adopt them as often as possible. And the last two, expand your vocabulary and read. Of course, we're already doing these two things in class, so yay us. The other one that I have here, the fine points of academic writing, this will really help you put a lot of the finishing touches on your essays in terms of elevating your diction and style and sentence types to that next level. So like I say, definitely check out what's here. There's a lot of really, really great ideas. I just want to do some quick demonstrations of, this is what colloquial and informal language looks like versus formal tone. And then we're going to look at how to make some quick fixes with some of the issues that we might have. So here is some sample writing. This comes from an AP prompt that was given a while ago. The writer Frederick Douglass had a quote that was all about literacy and freedom, all right? So that's really what the topic of these two introductory paragraphs are about. So the first one here is very much college level writing. It's got this nice formal tone to it. Verbal prowess has certainly played a great role in history. An individual's language is instrumental in the formation of his personal identity, just as the language of a given culture plays a large part in the formation of its communal identity. Language can be a key success in both personal and public causes. Back in the early 1800s, a young black slave, Phyllis Wheatley, set herself apart through poetry and led her readers to a fuller awareness of the plight of slaves in the United States. In the later 1800s, a very eloquent ex-slave, Frederick Douglass, spoke on behalf of his race, expertly manipulating his words into an extremely effective weapon. Douglass's mastery of the language earned him great respect, an invitation to the White House, and the ear of the American public. In the mid-1990s and the mid-1900s, people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X continued Douglass's legacy through their own communication and speaking skills. These public figures and artists illustrate that those who can speak and write well readily earn people's respect, thus developing their own individuality and ability to fight for the success of their cause. So this is, like I say, good stuff. This is that college level tone, that formal academic tone. This here is colloquial, and very informal in its approach. And I'm sure you'll hear the difference between the two. I have a very good friend who speaks really well. He is an example of how speaking correctly can lead to bigger and better things. He was always using words such as like, you know, ain't. We all use these words when we talk to each other, but our teachers always telling us that adults in the business world don't like us to use slang like this. So, when my friend set up an appointment to interview for a summer job, we all told him not to use these words. He shrugged it off and didn't listen to us, and he didn't get the job. The second job he went to interview for was different. He didn't use those words and he got the job. This goes to show that language can be the key to success. So here's a writer trying to use a personal anecdote to set up an argument, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there's a lot of lower level words. There's plenty of contractions. There's the sentence structure isn't very complex. We've got sentences that start with the word so. There's just many levels of informality in this example. So some of the things that I know you guys have to deal with are as follows. We're going to talk about getting rid of personal pronouns, and then on a lesser extent we're going to talk about pronoun antecedent agreement errors. This is all kind of bundled in the same package here. All right, so we know that we can't use the word you in our essays. We're going to try to avoid using the word you altogether. So here is a question that was posed by a student writer. How do you return home after such an experience? This is the question left in every reader's mind after reading Lord of the Flies. Okay? Here's another one. Sometimes in life you have to follow your heart and do what you know is right instead of what other people think. So these are two example sentences that come out of a student's essay. And again, fixing this mistake is always easy. It's not always easy. We have to get rid of the word you, and your here. So how do I say the same thing? How do I communicate the same idea without using these second person pronouns? Well, you can try replacing the word you with the word one, or a person, or people, or something similar. And if that doesn't work, what you have to really do is you have to kind of reconsider the entire sentence. Try to restructure the ideas. Try to go with a different sentence type. Again, get creative and push yourself as a writer. So, we could go, how does one return home after such an experience? This is the question left in one's mind after reading Lord of the Flies. That's not bad, okay? Here's another one where we actually just kind of rearrange the ideas. Readers must grapple with the question of how well the characters readjust to life off the island following the conclusion of Lord of the Flies. All right, so I'm getting rid of that question, and I'm just kind of restating the entire thing as one larger sentence. All right, and here's one that's even better. I would say this is what really you're aiming for. By expertly contrasting Ralph's relief at salvation with the unsettling conflict of an ongoing world war, Golding emphasizes the universal struggle humanity faces to end violent behavior. That is similar ideas, but, stated in a much more elaborate way, in a much more complex way. Excuse me. That second example, all right, you could say, sometimes in life, one must follow one's heart and do what is right instead of what other people think. So that's a quick, easy fix. But if you don't like that, excuse me, my goodness, here comes that cough again. You could do something like this. Doing what is right instead of what other people think can present a challenge, but in some cases it may mean the difference between life and death. See, again, here we've just rearranged it all together, completely upended the structure of the sentence, and it allows us to kind of break out of this, you this, you that, you're that. Okay, and then what else do we do? Indefinite pronouns. So we have to have a little word of caution here. You might have been accused of pronoun antecedent agreement issues. So an indefinite pronoun is when we refer to a person or a group of people without using names. So it would include words like one, everyone refers to a group of people without using their names, everybody or anyone, anybody. Each blank, so each student or each character or each boy, each survivor, like, you know, put any noun in here that refers to people, and that, again, would be an indefinite pronoun. Even the word nobody, no one, or if you did none of the boys or none of the survivors, okay? These are all what are called indefinite pronouns, and they are in this special class of words that are always treated as singular. And sometimes it's strange because when you use a word like everybody, you're clearly talking about a group of people. Or when you say everyone, again, that's a group of people. That's not just one person. So you wouldn't think to treat it as a singular antecedent, but we are supposed to do that. So that means they have to take a singular verb and a singular pronoun. Let's look at what that looks like. Let's say you had this sentence. As an American, you should be an informed citizen when filling out your ballot at the voting booth. All right, so if you wanted to get rid of the word you and your, you could swap that out with one. As an American, one should be an informed citizen when filling out one's ballot at the voting booth. You wouldn't want to put their here, T-H-E-I-R, because that would be plural, and that would not agree with one, which is singular. Here's where we get into problems. You would say, as an American, everyone should be an informed citizen when filling out his or her ballot at the voting booth. So you see a word everyone, and again, you automatically think of a group of people. So, you know, you might be tempted to say informed citizens, or you might be tempted to use the pronoun their here. But their, which is plural, again, would not agree with everyone, which is meant to be singular. And, you know, another option would be to make the entire thing plural, all right? As Americans, citizens should be informed when filling out their ballots at the voting booth. And to be honest, I think this makes more sense. I'm not a big fan of always having to say his or her, right? And if you kind of fall back on keeping things plural just throughout, then you can get away with using their all the time. It's not always possible. Sometimes you do have to say something like each boy had to cast his vote, you know, for chief, for who was going to be chief, or something along those lines. But like I say, we want to try to get rid of these second person pronouns for sure. And when you do that, you've got plenty of examples to work with, plenty of models to work with. All right, well, hopefully this has been helpful for you guys. I'll see you in